turn me around, ain't gonna let nobody turn me around. I'm gonna keep on walking, keep on talking, walking on the freedom land. Ain't gonna let injustice turn me around, no, turn me around. Ain't gonna let injustice turn me around. I'm gonna keep on walking, keep on talking, marching up the freedom land. Ain't gonna let discrimination turn me around, turn me around, turn me around. Gonna let discrimination turn me around. I'm gonna keep on walking, keep on talking, marching up the freedom land. Ain't gonna let no hatred turn me around, turn me around, turn me around. Ain't gonna let no hatred turn me around. Gonna keep on walking, keep on talking, marching up the freedom.
Good evening, and welcome to We Believe Digital Studios for the weekly Sizzling in Mississippi show. So glad to be with you here tonight. We're in downtown Jackson, Mississippi, where it's 88 degrees and doesn't seem to be thinking about dropping down any lower. Just really sweltering outside. And Chris Young here alongside my famous co-host, Maati, Jone, Primm. Good evening, Miss Primm.
Good evening. How we doing, Chris?
I am doing fine, and you are bright and beautiful as always.
Thank you very kindly.
And a cornucopia of knowledge, and we got some topics for tonight. So we want to start out, I guess, on this most recent federal lawsuit. We got more of them going on down here than you can shake a stick at.
Absolutely.
But the most recent one is Jackson Undivided, and a whole other bunch of entities have filed suit on this Senate Bill 2343 that we have talked about so many times. It really all on really all about free speech, and the people that filed the suit. Jackson Undivided Coalition, Mississippi Votes, People's Advocacy Institute, they're all on this together. Mississippi Poor People's Campaign, Black Voters Matter, Rukia Lumumba, Danielle Holmes, and Erika Bennett Scott. And the defendants are the appointed Public Service Commissioner, Sean Tyndall, and the appointed Capitol Police Chief, Bo Lucky. And really saying that this is really saying that this law that's supposed to go into effect in July is unconstitutional, overbroad, vague, and would give two positions, because those people could get changed out at any time, I suppose. So the two positions, both elected positions, would get to have authority over so much of what we do in Jackson in terms of exercising free speech, peaceful assembly, and it's all part of these takeover bills here. So we're trying to talk about that and see where we can go with that. And it made me go back and look at the vote. And I went back and looked at each and every member in that Legiscan website.
Yes, right.
You can go in there and see, and Maati, in the House. Now this was a Senate bill, but and in the Senate, of course, 29 to 14 with 7 abstentions. 7 abstentions in the Senate of 57. You know what that's all about.
Yes.
And and I'm not sure. I'm not a politician. At least I don't think of myself as one. But I don't understand. These abstentions. It's you know, I don't think I see any honor in that. And yet here you are being elected by the people to represent. But then when it comes to certain issues, you decide to abstain.
Right.
So does that mean they already see the tea leaves and they already know that the votes are going to come out the way, so they just don't want to get in the middle of it?
Right. They don't have to be in the middle.
They find a little safe space.
Yes.
By abstaining.
Yes.
They still get their paycheck.
Right. Right.
Not honorable.
No. Well, not courageous.
Not courageous.
Yeah.
And they're really, that's just politics for them.
Right.
But are you really representing your constituents when you don't cast a vote one way or another?
No, and I mean, the fact is, if there were representation, then there would be real representation. Black people in Mississippi are roughly 50% of the population.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yet, and still, we are bullied. We are undercounted. We're under-politic. At the same time being over-politic when it comes to bullying and these type of legislations. And what's the future hold for black people in Mississippi? Much of the same as has gone on in the past.
That's right.
Yeah.
And remember back there a few months ago, you know, I talked to several of those legislators at Hal and Mal's.
Okay.
During Blue Monday.
All right.
They like to go over there and, you know, when they're in session,
Okay.
they like to go over there and observe and socialize, I guess you could say. But I talked to 5 of them, and I don't have the, I did write about it later. I didn't name names because it was a social event,
Sure.
and there was spirits flowing, and I didn't feel like that was the right thing to do. But it was either 3 or 4 of the 5 I spoke to. Mm-hmm. Told me they didn't even read HB 1020.
That's typical. Yeah, it's typical for legislatures to vote on things that they haven't read.
So they're just following the whistle of the leader.
Right.
In their party.
Right. Not representing their constituents.
So this SB 2343 sailed through the Senate with the easy majority vote, 29-14 with 7 abstentions. In the House, which is really what I'm trying to focus on, the House, it was 74-41 with 6 abstentions. And of the 6 abstentions, 3 were Democrat and 3 were Republican.
Yeah.
Oh. But something different did happen in the House vote that didn't happen in the Senate vote, and that was this. 3 white Republicans voted against this takeover bill. Just 3. Now I counted, there's 75 of them.
Yes. Yeah.
White Republicans. 75 white Republicans in the Mississippi House of Representatives. 3 voted against this takeover bill.
Okay.
Yeah. One of them's, this is it, he's not running for re-election.
Okay.
So he's effectively out of it now.
Right.
One of them. And then there was 2 others, and one of them was from Madison, and the other was from up north, DeSoto.
Okay.
Again, all 3 white Republicans, and they voted against it. And that really, why does that get my attention so much? 3 out of 75 voted against a Jackson takeover bill.
Right.
Why is that getting my attention?
Well, it stands out so much. What is the purpose? You know, what are their intentions? One who is leaving probably doesn't want this on his biography, and the other 2 are politicking, perhaps. Or maybe they're actually voting their conscience.
And how do you tell? Well, the way I try to tell is I send them emails.
Okay.
And I did.
Oh, right.
And guess how many responses I've gotten out of the 3?
How many?
0.
Yeah. Yeah.
You knew that.
Yeah, I did. I did.
You knew that answer. So yeah, this, this SB 2343, they're not. There's no attempt being made to be helpful to Jackson. There's no attempt being made to say, look, everybody sees there's problems here. They've been going on for decades. You got poverty. You've got insufficient black economic engines. You've got insufficient infrastructure, water, sewer, inadequate infrastructure support, homelessness, crime. And nobody says, and I would submit, and I wonder if you would agree or not, that that all of those things really, in part, have existed or have gotten worse, at least in part, due to the state's indifference. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I would almost not even call it indifference. I would say that was their intention all along. I
think of it as targeted indifference.
Yeah.
But I hear your point.
Yeah. Malignant indifference.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so a big part of this, the peaceful assembly, free speech, a big part of this lawsuit is that they say, well, you have to go to these two people and ask permission to assemble in any area. And they've carved out, in any area, on any sidewalk, adjacent to any state-owned business, or they worded it differently, a business that's connected to state revenue.
Oh, wow.
Right. And the sidewalk and the adjacent street. And then they carved out over at the fairgrounds. Okay. They carved out over at the MDOC. They carved out all the areas where there's places that are not directly downtown, that are state buildings and all.
Sure.
And they carved those, I shouldn't say carve out, they made sure to include those.
Oh, right.
So it isn't just a downtown thing.
Right.
So if you want to do a rally or a protest at the fairgrounds, you still got to go through the same procedure where you're asking permission of these folks.
And you certainly have a good reason to protest down at the fairgrounds.
Yeah. Many good reasons.
Many good reasons. One time the murderer of the 3 civil rights workers had rented a booth at the state fair, and he had made all these postcards that had the pictures of the 3 murdered civil rights workers who were Cheney, Goodman, and Schwerner. And he was going to sign autographs, his autograph, over their faces, and people would pay so many dollars for those postcards. And people stopped before it happened.
Yeah.
But it wasn't that wasn't going to happen, and it wasn't that his application wasn't accepted, because it was.
Right.
But later on, they decided to do something else. But yeah, this is the state on fairgrounds, and we have a right to protest there, and we have a need to protest there. A couple of years ago, they talked about Mississippi 1817, and they had a booth and display up for that.
Yeah.
It goes again and again.
And again too, that makes me think of free speech.
Right. Yeah, or the lack of in this case, right. It's unconstitutional to say that people can assemble, people cannot protest near any particular place that's significant to the power base of Mississippi.
Right.
There's something wrong with that.
And it seemed like the First Amendment is the First Amendment for a reason.
Right.
But yet, it didn't have the required teeth until the 14th Amendment.
Right.
14th Amendment reinforced 77 years later.
Yeah.
came the 14th Amendment and reinforced so that the First Amendment also applies to, all branches of government, all legislatures, courts, juries, executive officials, agencies, public employers, public universities, school systems. It took that.
Right.
It took people infringing on what was put forth in the First Amendment for 77 years before somebody finally drew a line and said, okay, we got to have this 14th Amendment.
Right.
And when we look closer at the 14th Amendment, and you had that, which finally nullified that Dred Scott.
Right.
And that Chief Justice Roger, is it Taney or Taney? Taney.
Yeah.
The one that wrote that a black man, even if born free, could not claim rights of citizenship under federal constitution.
Right. But I don't know that Dred Scott decision isn't still being used, because the Dred Scott decision says that no white man has to recognize the rights of a black man.
Yeah.
Is not bound to do that. And we see that has occurred over and over again. That's the history of America. So I question if Dred Scott was
nullified.
Right.
So, but so we know the difference between on paper it's nullified.
Yeah.
It's null and void at this point. However, there's still practices going on, and wherever people can get away with it, they'll get away with it.
Right. And I mean, that's the way that laws are in America. It has to be enforced by the people, or it's not worth the paper it's printed on.
And then the next clause, Section 1, no state shall make or enforce any law which abridges the privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States.
Yes.
The next clause, nor shall the state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process.
Right.
So, but yet, the state of Mississippi, getting ready to enact another law that hampers, restricts, restrains the free voice of the people.
Right.
Puts causes and conditions on it.
Always.
And the law is going to give them the right to say no.
Right.
Appointed people.
Well, that's what you get when that's what you intend to get. Yep.
Right. And finally, and I take this from www.history.com, the equal clause protection was clearly intended to stop state governments from discriminating against black Americans, and over the years would play a key role in many landmark civil rights cases. So equal protection, and this is all included in this lawsuit, which I should have brought in a link to that if people wanted to look at it, but you could look it up. Blake Feldman is the attorney with Mississippi Center for Justice that's done a filing here. So we'll have to see what happens, and our Mississippi legislature, they passed the bill, and what the bill really, saying slightly different words than what we've been saying. This bill codifies restricting and reducing rights of the citizens of Hinds County and the city of Jackson, both of which are majority African American.
Right.
That's what it does.
Once again.
And we know who has done it.
Right.
And we know who it's done to.
Right. But black people here are suppressed anyway. How much more suppression is going to be necessary to satisfy those particular politicians and the people they represent? How much more?
There's never any attempt to help. What we just see is continual efforts to overrule.
Right.
To rule over.
Right. Yeah. And all they have to do is just stand down and represent the areas that they were elected to represent. They weren't elected to decide Jackson's outcomes.
Nobody ever says that part, Maati. It's exactly right.
Okay.
So, somebody that's in DeSoto or somebody that's down at the Gulf Coast,
Right.
why wouldn't they abstain?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's just systemic.
Always.
And it's sad. And so we'll have to see. And I guess we send prayers out to Judge Wingate once again. I mean, he's got the water, the sewer, the HB 1020. Also, let's not forget, in this Senate Bill 2343, that's the one where the police jurisdiction becomes concurrent with Jackson Police Department. And that's for the whole city. For the whole city. So you set out to have these cops that protect the Capitol building itself.
Right.
Just like you might have cops that, I don't know, protect a mall somewhere or something.
Right.
And now they expanded it out to 8.7 miles, and then in one fell swoop, now we have concurrent jurisdiction with the entire 114 square miles remaining of Jackson.
Right. And I still ask the question, why? Why are they in the middle of Jackson's personal business?
Mm-hmm.
The city of Jackson belongs to the citizens of Jackson. And we should be self-determining, not outsiders from the Kohl's store from near Memphis. There's no reason for them to do that any more than there would be a reason for us to conduct their business.
Right.
Right. And there's
no record of us doing that.
Right, there isn't.
No.
Right. And they're not going to be successful in this because, first of all, that's just not even what they want to do.
Well, we've run out of time on this first segment, so let's just dip out for a couple commercials. We'll be back in and pick this back up for a little bit. There's one more thing to add in here, at least one more from me, maybe more from you, Maati. We'll be right back.
Looking for the hottest content in the city of Jackson and surrounding areas? Check out WeBelieveDigital.com. Also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. We Believe Digital Podcast is here for all your podcasting needs.
Have you had your Earth Blend coffee today? At Earth Blend Coffee, we take pride in offering you the very best of beans across the world, blended and roasted to perfection, giving you superior quality and satisfying and flavorful taste. Experience the world in one cup with Earth Blend Coffee.
To order, visit earthblendcoffee.co now.
Very good. Just coming into the second segment of our weekly Sizzling in Mississippi program here on We Believe Digital Studios. And we've been talking about this now a federal lawsuit, constitutional rights, free speech, peaceful assembly lawsuit filed by a whole bunch of organizations in the Jackson Hines area. And we don't understand. Well, we understand. We don't. These people just are relentless. They get in our business. They want to tell us how to do things, and they don't offer to help, but they try and take away our economic engines like the airport. They try and take away our public schools. That was a close call just a couple, 3-4 years ago. They don't contribute to bringing any economic, when anything side of an economic engine comes that could help our community, it gets moved off to the suburbs. So just sad with this Senate Bill 2343. But one thing that I did, and I Googled Maati. I Googled something along the lines of states that are infringing people's rights to free speech or something like that.
Yes.
Some kind of I tried to duplicate it later today, and I couldn't find what I originally found. I wish I had saved it, but I came up to a Find Law website, and I was shocked beyond shocked that every single state plus the district has something going on where they're suppressing, restricting free speech and assembly. And in 14 states, if you want to assemble, you got to pay a fee. So not only, and I mean, we have this going on here. I don't know the exact extent. I couldn't review the specifics of what's going on in each and every state, but there was some form of, and it could have been for just one town or one city in a state, but in all 50 states there is something going on, which really surprised me. But then it surprised me even more that in 14 states there are fees attached when people want to do a public assembly.
Right.
A peaceful protest.
Right.
An exercise of free speech, a gathering, a rally.
Well, that's one way to restrict free speech in assembly.
Put money on it.
Yeah. They do that for many things. You look at education budgets, they're based on real estate taxes.
Yeah.
Why should that be?
Right.
What does one have to do with the other?
Nothing.
Yeah.
So anyway, those are the parts that I had. Is there anything else you wanted to add on this? I know we're going to be watching it. I don't know if we can expect, federal now, so who knows how this is going to go. It could go quickly, it could take forever. We just don't know.
Right. I there's no way I can predict. I know that it's unconstitutional, and I know that this shouldn't be happening, but it's happening so far, and this is what Mississippi wants, and typically Mississippi just operates the way it wants to, regardless of federal intervention or federal dictates. It doesn't matter. Mississippi remains Mississippi.
Had an interesting discussion today with I might call him like maybe a elder statesman or something.
Okay.
Up there in your lifelong Mississippian. Somebody used to shop in your store years ago.
Okay.
And he said to me, "You don't seem to understand." And I said, "What's that, sir?" He said, "You don't understand. That's what they see. That's what they see. They don't see the same Mississippi you see." And I jotted down a couple of notes, and I want to think about that a bit more. But because I've often thought, I've used the term invisible so many times talking about all this but maybe that's not the right way to couch it. Maybe I look at things from the wrong side. But here's a black gentleman, accomplished gentleman, a lot closer to 80 than he is to 75, and telling me you don't get it, because these white people, they don't see the same Mississippi you see.
Right.
And maybe it's just so simple that I'm making it into a big deal.
Well, it's old Mississippi that they see, and their intention is to maintain the status quo.
That's right.
So that's what they're doing.
That's my starting point anyway.
Right. And that's why all this legislation is geared for that intent.
So it's not new information at all.
No, unfortunately.
It's just the way it was conveyed, I guess it kind of, I don't know.
Yeah, it seemed newer, but it's the same old song.
We ready for health care?
Yeah.
Mississippi Today article from just 4 days ago. Mississippi ranks as the unhealthiest state in the entire country. Again, is the title.
Yes. Yeah.
and we know this.
Yeah. If you travel to any other state, you can tell. Because the people are much healthier every place else. People around here walk around with limps.
Yeah.
Yeah. They look unhealthy. You just don't, the percentage of people wheezing and having breathing problems, mobility problems, weight problems, skin problems, all of this. And it's such a part of the culture that many people believe that this is what accompanies age. But it doesn't.
It's not.
No.
And life expectancy
It's the lowest
is
tier.
the lowest.
Right. And it's obvious. I mean, when you see how people are moving around and then you go to other places and it just isn't like that.
And this report here that they based this story on, they focused on Mississippi being last in so many health categories, including reproductive and women's health, which the irony of wanting to call a culture of life, and yet the worst kind of rankings in reproductive and women's health and racial health equity.
Right.
Is just, it's just bizarre that they can, so it's really not a culture of life at all. That's just a political talking point.
That's it, yeah.
And they say stark disparities in Mississippi compared with other states, and the number of, and near the bottom or last for a number of measures used to evaluate the health system performance itself.
Right.
And one of the ones I was shocked by, which U.S. News and World Report, the update, the annual update, showed the quality. So you got the healthcare system itself, then you got the actual healthcare being provided, and then you have issues like quality and access, and even public health. They weed that out as a separate category, and even that's low.
And it gets worse if you go to places like the Delta. It's even worse.
We have a new state health director. I've been critical many times on this show of the former health director, Thomas Dobbs, who presided over the highest COVID death rate in the country.
Yes.
And so he let COVID be politicized.
Right.
He didn't stand up and say, hey, no, these are, everybody's a human being here.
Right.
And these are the standards, and this is what we do.
Right.
And if you don't like that, I'm out.
Right.
He didn't do that.
Right. I mean, even the wearing of mask and social distancing, it really didn't occur here in Mississippi. If it occurred for a week or two. And then it was back to business as usual. And I've had people come in my store because I enforce the mask rule. I don't want to get COVID, and I don't want to give anyone COVID. So when you come into this particular place, you have to wear a mask.
Yeah, you make it clear from the very...
Yeah.
I've watched you halt people right there at the door.
Yeah.
And turn them around. But then again, you offer to give out masks if they don't have one.
Right. Yeah, we have them available. But it's necessary.
But you establish a standard for your store on Fair Street.
Right.
This Dr. Dobbs couldn't establish a standard for the state, but yet he called himself the state health director.
Right.
And then his reward, after presiding over the highest COVID death rate in the nation, is to take over a public service institute, there's another name for it, over at UMMC, a public health stewardship.
Yes, sorry. Yeah, but that's in keeping with the culture of Mississippi. The culture of Mississippi is that you become ill and you don't recover. And one illness leads to another until you're gone.
Well, Jone, we got a new health director, health officer. She shrugs. His name is Dr. Daniel Edney, and he actually has had public health experience, but also, of all things, he has credentials in a specialty in addiction medicine.
Okay.
And he's telling it like it is.
Okay.
So in this interview, he said if we had 60 states, we'd be 60th in health. Someone has to be 50th, but it does not have to be us, is what he was making clear.
Yeah.
I hear him on the radio. I see him in this interview here.
Yes.
I've heard him on multiple radio shows. They've even had him on Super Talk, the red meat generator.
Sure.
But he's telling the truth about things.
Right. Yeah, Mississippi is always last in health. And people are used to it. People are used to dying for no good reason. Mm-hmm. People are used to dying for the simple fact that they don't have access to clean water. They don't have access to nutritious foods. They don't have access to grocery stores that could supply fresh fruits and vegetables. Instead, we're eating out of dollar stores, and we're eating processed foods and canned foods and frozen foods, and nothing is fresh anymore. And people have just become accustomed to suffering as a way of life.
Right. And exactly to your point, one of the other quotes he has in this article, Maati, he said it's critically important that we take the fact that we have the lowest life expectancy, the highest infant death rate, one of the highest maternal death rates in the country very seriously, and stop accepting it as our lot in life.
That's it.
We must be willing to do whatever it takes to get us off the bottom in health.
Right.
And so...
But that comes to education. Mm-hmm. Comes to education, and it comes to economic resources.
And he's upfront about didn't get the state funding this year to hire more nurses.
Right.
For this program.
Right.
A program that sends nurses to homes of mothers experiencing high-risk pregnancies. The legislature didn't cough up the bucks. They call it Healthy Moms, Healthy Babies. We've heard of these in other states.
Right.
He says it serves about 700 people across the state. They wouldn't fund it. They wouldn't fund it at a time of surplus.
Right.
With billions in surplus, and they wouldn't fund it.
No.
Not a culture of life.
No. Not a Christian culture either. For Mississippi to be one of the notches in the Bible Belt.
I think that, right.
Yeah.
And I think this is from data through either 21 or 2022. Report showed 22.4% of women in Mississippi did not receive prenatal care in the first trimester.
It's unconscionable. It's like 1 out of 4 women. And who is that woman? She's poor. She's uneducated. She doesn't have access to probably clean water and fresh fruits and vegetables.
Hence the need for the extra wraparound.
Right.
And an investigation by Mississippi Today is included in this article by Mississippi Today, which was on June 22nd. If you want to go back and look at the full article, found that the state division of Medicaid. Mm-hmm. So once the pregnancy is on,
right,
then mom and baby are automatically covered.
Right.
But the state division of Medicaid, the largest funder of births in the state, does not track when expecting mothers go to their first prenatal appointment.
Yeah.
What are you doing?
Right. It would probably be a shameful number, so.
They just don't want to be involved at all. They just, when the hospital sends the bill or the provider sends the bill, says, yeah, I saw 15 moms this month, you know, for prenatal care, whatever the code goes on it. They just pay the bill. They just pay the hospital. You know, and they don't want any details. They don't want to know what's going on. They don't. They just systemically want to keep it as limited as possible.
And as long as the citizens of Mississippi tolerate this, it'll continue to go on.
We got to find a way. We got to find a way to resist this somehow, Maati. We got to find a way to push back. At the end of the article says, as the Magnolia State starts to feel the compound effects, and we talked about that earlier on the phone today, we have CEOs of hospitals that are resigning. You have various major, including UMMC, major hospital systems pulling away from the Mississippi Hospital Association because the Mississippi Hospital Association is advocating for Medicaid expansion. So that's a political decision that these major systems are making to pull away from the very association that's there to advocate for them. But they don't. But they rather roll the dice with the legislators. But these people have taken oaths. They're playing
politics with people's lives, once again.
But many of these folks, some of them are non-doctor administrators, but many of these are actual physicians that have taken oaths. And now they're swimming in the political pool. As we're the worst in the nation. I mean, how do you feel good about yourself at the end of the day? Who's going to take a stand?
It has to be the people. And if they're not willing to do so, this will not change.
Well, I want to give this Dr. Daniel Edney as much support, encouragement, whatever the right word is, because it sounds to me like he's telling the truth, and to me that's a darn good starting point. Now, what he's got to do is find a way, it seems like, to be able to get next to these legislators and find a way to get them to change their thinking.
But see, we have a culture in Mississippi that's just absolutely unhealthy. It's just the culture is one that empowers people to be unhealthy. No sidewalks, or very few sidewalks in the city of Jackson. As busy as it gets, people who are in wheelchairs have to get out into the actual traffic as if they were a car. And they're going in and between cars and riding in lanes with cars. You know?
Horrible.
And even some of the sidewalks, they're not passable for someone in a wheelchair, so it continually putting them out there and endangering their lives. It's on and on. These culture. Potholes, trying to dodge potholes all the time. That's, mentally, that's just unhealthy. You can't have a smooth ride anywhere. That's maybe if you're in Eastover. But that's it. What does that say?
Sad commentary.
Sizzling
in Mississippi. That's why we call it that. Hey, we're going to dip out for our final break, and we'll come back for a relatively short segment, the final segment, 13 or 14 minutes worth, and we're going to talk about a state senator who wants to bring the old flag back, bring that Confederate flag back. That'll help us out. We'll be right back. Thank you.
The Mississippi Link is an African-American female-owned newspaper with a trusted voice that is highly respected throughout the city, state, and nation. Our motto, keepers of the knowledge for people who speak the truth, since 1993. Link significantly influences the thoughts, attitudes, and buying decisions of its readers. Call us at 601-368-8481 for your advertising needs. If you would like to receive a newspaper in the mail each week, our annual subscription is only $52 per year. That is only $1 per week for you to stay informed regarding many stories that you can only get in the Mississippi Link. Sign up today at themississippiLink.com and click on Home Delivery.
SocratesGarrettENT.com is a diversified firm specializing in recycled aggregates and crushed concrete. SocratesGarrettENT.com's recycled materials provide the construction industry with significant economic and environmental benefits by recycling clean concrete rubble into M.DOT grade rock materials. Recycled aggregates and crushed concrete can be applied to driveways, road construction, bank protection, parking lots, general bulk fills, and more. For more information, please call 601-896-0084 or visit us online at SocratesGarrettENT.com.
Okay, welcome back. Welcome back for our final segment today on Sizzling in Mississippi, and we're just talking. Saw some comments in the chat. Both political parties are at fault for the shape Mississippi is in, and one of our loyal listeners, Mr. Williams. You know, we hear that loud and clear, but I'm not sure we can get totally on board. We see what you're saying with that for sure, and yet the numbers are so
askew.
It's so out of balance. I mean, so many times. How many times have we seen votes where it's like the Democrats shouldn't even bother coming? I mean,
right. Well, what's the purpose?
So if the scales were more even. We could probably agree with that a whole lot more, but definitely get your point on that for sure. Speaking of a point here, this lady, I should have sent Ariel a photograph of this lady. This comes from a Mississippi Free Press, article, and she's a white lady. She's a Kathy Chisholm, a Republican from New Albany. And, very interesting, that's where this last leg of this Meredith Walk Against Crime went from New Albany to Jackson. Okay. Just finished there yesterday. Okay. It was an amazing event. Beautiful. And coincided with his 90th birthday. Yes. Turned 90 yesterday.
Isn't that amazing?
Amazing. Does he ever stop by the store?
Yes.
I love hearing that.
Yeah, we've had some very good conversations. Yeah.
I felt he made me feel like a king yesterday. Before the march started, I saw him over there in the car cooling off and everything. Yeah. And I went over and said hello, and I'd met him only one time before. It had been about a year. He would not let go of my hand. I mean, literally 4 or 5 minutes. It was just, and did some other niceties, but just an amazing, amazing man. But somebody who's maybe not so amazing, it appears to be this Mississippi Senator Kathy Chisholm, Republican of New Albany, and she's saying that we ought to bring that Confederate flag back. She said a lot of, where is it? A lot of our people, a lot of our people fought and died under that flag. She said that at a political speech at the Belmont political rally in, do you say Tashomingo?
Yeah.
I got that.
Yeah.
Tashomingo County.
I would say it that way.
On June 3rd.
Mm-hmm. Tishomingo. Yeah.
Close.
So.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So, it just, it's really unsettling. And the other thing, too, that, she said that she claimed that the flag was made by an African American. This last flag that we had, for the flag of 1894, the one we got rid of a couple of years ago, she claimed that was designed by an African American.
She was half right.
Oh, she was half right.
Right.
Oh, okay.
It wasn't designed by an African American. It was designed by Africans. It's an ancient symbol, and it goes back to Eastern Africa into what we call the hieroglyphs and the papyrus, where we'll see emblems of crosses. But they're in no way share the same meaning as a confederacy. In fact, they're the very opposite.
Well, I think I misspoke too, and not, and I hear everything you're saying. What the article says that she falsely claimed an African American Confederate soldier had designed the flag, whereas the article And then she went on to say, I can only imagine how proud he was of his art. His flag design was chosen to represent our state, and now we want to strip him of his pride and his hard work. I'm sure he put a lot of thought into this design. And,
under a lash.
And she wrote that in a Facebook post. Yeah. But then the article is saying that, in fact, it was white supremacist lawmaker Senator Edward N. Scudder, Issaquena County? Issaquena County designed the 1894, the 1894
but no,
flag.
He didn't.
Well, they're lying then.
Right. No, it comes, these designs aren't original. These people, these Confederates, it's borrowed from ancient Africa, where you see the papyrus and you'll see God. Right? And he's black. In fact, here we go. We're showing it right here, where you see the crosses. Okay? Now, if you look in the lower corner, underneath what looks like Klansmen, but aren't, you'll see God sitting on the throne. Okay? If you look at the throne, doesn't that look a little familiar? Doesn't it look like an American flag? Doesn't it look similar to the Mississippi state flag of 1894? So it's actually not a design by Betsy Ross, but it's a design of ancient Africa, and that design is not a flag, it's the throne of God. Now, in order to move that square, like how we have the square with all the stars, right? Originally it's in the lower left-hand corner. For that to move to the upper left-hand corner, what has to happen? You have to turn that throne over. So what you're doing is you're overthrowing the black God and creating this new emblem.
Wow. You don't hear that story every day.
Nope.
I see you brought us that.
Yeah.
I had no idea that.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Which is why I don't salute any of those flags.
Okay.
I don't salute the old Mississippi flag with the stars and bars. I don't salute the American flag, and I don't salute the current Mississippi flag, which has in its emblem the white magnolia, which is a symbol for white Confederate womanhood.
Yeah, I remember you saying that.
Right. So all of this. Now, they've never had a situation where they can find some original design. So, Ariel, if you could pull up that graphic again, I wanted to show you what looks like Klansmen in that photograph, right? That upper photograph there. Well, that photograph is not of Klansmen.
Okay.
It's actually the Brotherhood of Negro Men, and they are a Catholic organization, and they were highly prized for their honor, their dignity, and their commitment to Christian values. And they've been around since the 1400s.
I think is there a connection to the name Peter or Paul? Sort of like a society of... Not
that one.
That's not...
Yeah.
Because I've heard about that in black Catholic churches before.
Right. Now, they're connected to their saint. I'm looking at him right now. I can't think of his name. It escapes me. But they have a patron saint.
Okay.
Yeah. And they are highly honored, even to this day, to the point where actor Antonio Banderas has actually worn this garb and walked through the streets of Spain.
So without having knowledge of that, most people would think there's a clan there.
Right, but that is Seville, Spain, and that is an ancient order that has been around since the 1400s, and at least the 1400s, and those are all black men, and it's the Brotherhood of Black Men is what it's called.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting, and people appreciating you sharing this, Maati. Now, this lady, Chisholm...
is an idiot.
Okay, maybe so, but it's interesting that she's taken this stance because her county voted 62 to 38 to change the state flag in 2020.
Well, you know, these politicians aren't representing the people.
We've covered.
Right.
We keep covering that.
Right. It's
sadly.
Right.
So who cares what they think?
Right. I'm going to politic and do what I intend on doing.
Right.
Right. Which is maintaining the status quo.
Right.
I can't do that if I keep listening to the people.
Right.
Right.
God forbid.
God forbid the citizens of Mississippi might have a different opinion.
Well, we hope. This is interesting. I mean, we've covered some ground during this show.
Yes.
And thank you for jumping in on chat, people. Do you have any other thoughts you wanted to wrap up with before we check out for the night?
Well, I just want people to know that through education, you can become healthier.
What a point. What a point. I love that expression, an old expression in the counseling field. People seem to do better with more information.
Right.
So like you're saying, let's get some education injected into this and elevate the health of people by doing so.
Right, yeah. Change the curriculum in schools.
Big write-up in the Mississippi Link this week coming on that James Meredith event at the Capitol yesterday. Really profound event. About 200 people plus the Jim Hill High School band. I only saw one pastor over there. I'm not sure I understand that. Maybe about 4 elected officials. But anyway, a tremendous event was held, and you could read all about that in the Mississippi Link. Be coming out on to the newsstands on Thursday. Come out Mississippi Link online on Wednesday evening about 8:30, 9 o'clock. So thanks for tuning in. Thanks for tuning in tonight, and we'll see you back next Monday night. And if you have any thoughts of things you'd like us to look into or discuss, please give us a call, 1-800-492-5186. We always want you to know that you're part of the discussion, and if it's important to you, it's important to us. So let us know if you've got any thoughts. Have a great evening. Watch out for yourselves and those around you. Take good care.